Welcome, welcome, welcome to another Sunday French Fluency Live. Today we are going to speak about cognates, which are also known as sometimes as false friends, but they are also real friends, as we will see. So I see that there are a couple of you already here. Please say hi in the comment section so that I can know that you're here. And if you are watching the recording, welcome. The comment section is here for you as well. Sorry, if you're here right now, I mean to say, please say hi in the live chat. And if you're watching the recording, the comment section is here for you as well. I know that several people have told me, oh, I can't make it live. It's okay. If you're watching right now, please say hi in the comment section so that I know that you came. And if you have any question at all or any feedback, I would love to hear it as well in the comment section. And of course, if you are live right now, the live chat is all here for you. I expect that we will chat a lot today because there is a really, really great topic, and I'm sure we'll have lots of things to contribute on the topics of cognates, real friends, false friends between French and English. So we have Connie and Linda here, bonjour, and we have someone whose name is S. So welcome. If you have a full name or like a nickname or something, you can type it in so that I know your name. And yes, if you don't know me, my name is Angel Pretot. So I am the owner of the website FrenchFluency.net. I am a French learning coach. It's my job. It's literally my job title. If you've never heard, oh, Stephanie, welcome, Stephanie. If you've never heard of a French learning coach before me, it could be normal because I pretty much invented the profession, but now there are more than others. So there are other French learning coaches that you can find, but I was the OJ. This is why I call myself the premier French learning coach, because I quite literally was the first one. It is possible to study one-on-one with me, particularly if you have a very important projects that involve learning French in a rather short amount of time. For example, if you want to get a new job where you will need to speak French, or if you are moving to France, or if you have moved to France, or if you have married a French speaker, or you plan on marrying a French speaker. Those are the kind of things that I work with my students, or really any project that just involves specific abilities to speak French, and typically that you need to have rather soon and you don't know how to do it. That is the kind of situations for which you can work one-on-one with me. I do have all my links in the description below. And if you are not sure, I mean, well, whether you're sure or not, actually, if you're considering working one-on-one with me, you will have to book a free call with me first so that we can make sure that it will be the kind of things that will work for you. So don't hesitate to check that out. I have 3 spots right now for one-on-one coaching. So if that could be for you, please check it out. I do have to say that my current prices are actually the prices that I set back in 2019, which was before the dollar took a plunge. So the prices will increase at the 1st of July. That is at least how I have planned it. So if you start working with me right now, you will actually lock in the current price, and it will not become more expensive for you. But if you start after the 1st of July, then it will be more expensive. So all of that little ramble just to tell you, now is a good time to check it out. And if you don't have a pressing need to learn French, but you would rather be interested to learn French for your own interest, for your own benefits, or maybe for like future plans that are like farther away in the future, you can also check out my group programs, and particularly the French Fluency Accelerator, which is basically sort of an all-access program where you can access all the courses that I've already created about lots of topics, really. So you have all the links in the description below. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask them at not at any point. So actually, good opportunity to segue into the topic of today. So the way that we do, I see you have a couple of new people here. The way that we do those lives is that there is a plan, there is a schedule, and there is also a worksheet. The worksheet, you can get it from my Telegram channel. It's free. You'll have also the link in the description. And you will be able to also recover all the worksheets that have been used for all of these Sunday live sessions until today. And all of them in the future as well will be on the channel. So that will be a lot easier. And if you are subscribed to my email list, you will also receive on every Friday the worksheets for the next Sunday. But if you are not subscribed, or if you were not subscribed in the past, the only way that you can recover the past ones is on my Telegram channels, because we have a lot of fun over there. Even though I haven't been posting so much on Telegram lately, I apologize for that. It's Mercury retrograde. I'm a bit out of whack, so I'm focusing on the essentials, which are working with my clients, preparing the classes for the French Accelerator, which we have a new live class that's coming up. I think it's on the 24th. It's on a Saturday this month. And of course, preparing those lives. And so there will be every week I have a topic prepared. So today is false friends and real friends. So we will speak about that for the first part of this live class, and then there will be some time in the end of the live class where I can answer any other question that you have about any topic. Really, I mean, try to ask a question that I can answer. It's better if it's somewhat about French. But I'm happy to answer all the questions at the end of the session. And if you have a question that's related to the topic, you can ask them at any time. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any question or something you'd like to know now, please ask. And otherwise, we'll jump into the topics. I have a couple. Stephanie thinks she's a beginner, so welcome. There's always a great place to start already here, because you will avoid having to learn things that are either useless or that are not very efficient. So I would strongly recommend watching my video, which is how to learn French for beginners, which is 7 things that I wish every beginner would know. So if you're a complete beginner, you need to watch this video, that video. It's on my channel. It's on the main page. You have like a direct link to that, or you can just type Angel Pretot French for beginners and you'll find it. So Connie is saying that I'm fantastic and we're all friendly here. This is true. We're all friendly here. I hope you enjoy and get the information to help you on your journey. All right. So welcome, everybody. I hope you have your worksheet and you have printed it. On this worksheet, I have really put a number of examples, but I only had 1 page because it's a personal principle that I will always want to put it on 1 page, but really there will be a lot more information, so you can have a little side thing to write more information on. Stephanie thinks she listened last week, looking forward to learning French. First trip to France next year. Woo, that's exciting, exciting, exciting. All right, so if you have any questions, Stephanie, or anyone else who's watching, I'm really happy to answer all the questions. That is the reason why I go live for 1 hour every Sunday at the same time. So, yep. Now, for now, let's get into it. Real friends and false friends. So the technical term for the so-called friends is cognates. And sometimes people will say real cognates or true cognates and false cognates for the distinction that we will speak about later. So first, let's look at why they exist, because there seems to be a lot of hype around false friends on the internet, which is based on the idea that like false friends are kind of fun and kind of tricky, and possibly that the French have put them there just to annoy the learners. Tell me if you think that's the case. I don't know, but there's just a lot of hype around false friends because it's a fun topic, to be honest. I mean, especially those that have a bit of a more like, how can I say that? Some of them could get you in trouble. This is actually the ones I've put on the last part of the worksheet. A couple of them that might put you in trouble, so we want to learn those in particular. But really, the main reason why these exist is because there is actually a lot of vocabulary in common between English and French. And about 50% roughly of the English vocabulary is of French origin. Now, it might be a bit challenging to see it at first because the words that you use, the word that we use, I'm actually also an English speaker, although not a native. The word that we use, most of the words that we use are actually of German origin, or more like of a Germanic language. And the words that our French origin seem to be more of a minority in everyday English, but they will be very present in more like fancy, elaborate, or technical English. And it is very useful as a French learner to learn to decode which part of English is of Germanic origin and which part of English is of Latin through French origin. Because, of course, once you know that an English word is of French origin, then you know that there is a French word that looks just like it. And that means either just the same or something really similar. So I hope this makes sense to you. This is a really, really important thing to realize, is that in English, you have a lot of French words. So when you, quote unquote, bought the English language, you got 50% of French vocabulary for free. It's kind of a good deal. It's really a good deal when you think about it, because all the work that you've done learning English, I mean, it might not have felt like work if you're native, but you did put a lot of time into learning English, even if you did it as a young child. And that can be reused to learn French if you know how. So false friends are really more like a blip in this system. Like, it was not really meant to happen. We will see why there are false friends. Typically, it's just because the meaning has glitched a bit when the words were transmitted between the languages. And in fact, this still happens. Like, there are words in French that are from English. For example, un parking, which would be parking. It's actually a parking lot. We just decided to like kick out the word lot. It's just un parking. Of course, parking does not mean parking lot in English. It means lots of things. You know, anything that would be related to parking, you could use parking as an adjective there. And of course, you could say I am parking my car. But in French, un parking is a parking lot. So this is the kind of glitch that has also happened in the when the English have borrowed or used French words. And now let's, if you might be actually interested in that. So how did that happen? Long story short, it's all the fault of William the Conqueror. So when in 1066, William the Conqueror from Normandy, so a Frenchman, practically, basically, decided to invade England, he actually brought his men, his soldiers, and eventually all of the nobility that became then the English nobility into the country. So basically, the French colonized England at that point. And what happens with colonization is that the invaders or the colonizers just become the upper class of that country, and those that were already there become the lower class. I'm sure you have had this experience, or not personal experience, hopefully, although maybe you might have, but you might have learned that from either your history courses or any place where you learn history. That's basically what happens with colonization, is that we colonize the country and then you become our servants, whether you want it or not. And so those colonizers who were French have had a original French language. I mean, it wasn't the kind of French that we speak now, but it was close enough. It was like an old French. And the people who were living already there were more like a Germanic population, and they had a more Germanic kind of language, which is why a part of English is also similar to German, which was very convenient for me when I actually learned German, when I started living in German-speaking countries, which I have been doing for 10 years now. It was very convenient for me to already know English, because that helped a lot with learning German. It's like the part of English that I knew was not from French was actually from German. So that was a digression. And so then what happened is that basically the French language became the fancy part, like the upper class, upper level part of the English language. And then the Germanic language that was here in England before became the lower class, lower level, more like everyday version of English language. And that explains why now I get to teach to my students that in order to know what a French word means, you could check whether or not you have a fancy English word that has some sort of like similar form, similar shape as the French word in question. So I actually, oh yeah, it goes here on the worksheet. So a great trick means that a fancy English word is most likely a French word. This is a great trick for learning vocabulary. And to give you an example, which blows my mind, I've been knowing that for many years, but it still blows my mind just thinking about it. Because when I was 10 years old, I had my first English teacher, and you have that situation in English that the name of an animal is different from the name of the meat of that same animal. So for example, you have a pig and you have pork meat, or you have a sheep or lamb and you have mutton meat, or you have a cow and you have beef meat. And that for a French child was really weird, because we in French have the same word. I mean, if we eat a sheep, we eat a sheep. If we eat a pig, we eat a pig. Like, we don't make a difference when the animal is in our plate or when the animal is alive. And my teacher at the time told me, or I told the class actually, that the reason was that people in England, they love animals so much that they don't want to say that they eat them, so that's why they have a different word. Now that I look at it with my adult mind, I'm 36 years old now, I'm like, that would be so hypocritical of the English to have loved animals so much that they agree to eat them, but not with the same word. What the hell? Like, how does that happen to a language? Long story short, it doesn't. The reason why you have different words in English is because the people who were eating the animals were not the same as the people who were farming the animals. So the people who were farming the animals were those aforementioned lower class people who spoke more of a Germanic language, right? Which is why the words for animals alive in English are very close to the words for animal alive in German, or alive or meat as well in German. So for example, you have a cow in English, and in German it's a Kuh, or you have a lamb in English, and in German it's Lamm. or sheep is Schaf in German. It's very similar. Those words are very similar to the German words. And the words that are the upper class words of the people who eat the meat that has been found by the lower class people are French words, like mutton. Mutton is in French mouton, and that would be the meat and the animal, or beef, which would be in French bœuf, and that would be the meat or the animal. And there's another example, pork, right, which is meat in English, and in French, un porc is the animal, a du porc is the meat. So you can see how the entire English language has been built in this way, with two levels of language, practically two languages squashed in one, as you know, after the next 10 centuries, this layering of the population has become less layered. I mean, at some point, eventually, after 10 centuries, some integration does happen, and you don't really feel so much of the difference in English, but you still do have a lot of a fancier vocabulary, which is of French origin, and a less fancy vocabulary that is of German origin. So please tell me if that makes sense, and if you are learning something, if that is useful for you, and then we can get into the more technical details, some more examples. But I hope this explanation explains to you why we have so many cognates between our two languages, and why it's amazing, really, because if you are learning another language, I mean, other than German, of course, it works with German in reverse, right? And it will work with languages like Spanish or Italian and all the Latin languages. They are close to French, so they will be slightly farther from English than French is, but close enough that you can still use that. But if you are learning Chinese, or if you were learning, say, an African language like Swahili, or if you were learning, I don't know, an Indonesian language, for example, you would have none of that. So it's a great present that you have just for being an English speaker and for choosing French as a language. So I hope you are appreciating the present and not being too mad about the fact that as a result of this present, we also have some false friends. All right, so Cynthia is here. Welcome, Cynthia. I'm glad you're back. Bonjour, bonjour. And yeah, so do you have any questions so far? I'll just give myself a little break so you can share your thoughts. Connie is saying, I knew about colonization, but I guess I never paid attention to how it changes languages. Oh, well, you have a world of opportunities that are open for you to just pay attention to it now, because when you think about it, it's actually still happening, but kind of in reverse. Like nowadays, we are adopting a lot of English words into the French language, and very often they're like technical terms that we use for more modern concepts. And we just either didn't bother to make a French word, or if we did bother to make it, it wasn't actually adopted. So an example of one of those words is email, for example. So you have email in English. In French, you have un email. It's masculine. Actually, almost all the words that we borrow from English are masculine, except maybe la COVID. But there is a word for email in French. That would be le courriel. Stands for courrier électronique, literally e-mail, electronic mail. But that word didn't land. And we have a lot of other examples like that. It landed a bit more in Quebec. In Quebec, they're a bit more mindful of the language. So yeah, you still have a lot of exchange of words. And often it's because when a concept is transferred from a culture into another one, we often just adopt the word with it. And for everything that's really modern and really technological, that's connected to the internet, like, I mean, the internet is internet in every language. Well, Internet, if you pronounce it the French way. It's because we just didn't bother to make another word, because we borrowed the word with the concept, and because it was invented in the US, then it's everywhere like that. So you have this layering happening in the languages as we just have more and more communication with each other in this way. So I'm glad that this is interesting for you. So let's look at some examples. So you have a lot of real friends, as I basically explained. So like I said, you know, beef is bœuf. You just have to remember that if it's alive, it's still un bœuf, and un mouton is still un mouton even if it's alive. And you have some actual patterns that are really useful to learn which words actually are just the exact same. So the real friends. So here are some examples. This is absolutely not an exhaustive list. I would probably take me 15 pages to make an exhaustive list, but this is a good start. So yep, let's. I'll give you a moment to just guess what those patterns are like. The words are extremely close. And while you're guessing and trying to fill in the blanks, I will answer Linda's question. Wasn't there a big debate over it, whether it was low COVID or la COVID? Yes, there was, I think we can say that there is. I actually, when I teach and people are speaking about COVID in their one-on-one sessions, I tell them, I'm not going to take part in this debate. You can pick. There are great arguments for both sides. I could probably make an entire YouTube live about le COVID or la COVID and maybe how like words get their gender in French. That could be actually interesting. Tell me if you'd like to have one of those sessions be about how words get their gender in French and things like quirks like le COVID or la COVID. That could be interesting. Okay, so in the meantime, let's look at this little chart. So in French, you have words that end in sion, like la nation. And you can write next to it that in English it's also shun. So it's not pronounced like sion, it's pronounced shun in English. You have to learn, it's really important actually to learn how things are pronounced in French, because that will help you a lot. Because each time you have a word in shun in English, it becomes a word in sion in English. So in French, sorry. So la nation is in English nation. And for example, addition is l'addition. Of course, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna be able to get them on top of my head, but separation is séparation in French, and so on and so forth. So it's a really useful one. As soon as you have a shun in English, it's a sion in French. It's very rarely a false friend. Like 99% of the time, you will get the words being the exact same with the exact same meaning. You just have to pronounce it French style. So that's why it's important to know the phonetics of French. There is one example that I've put here, which is a false friend, but we'll speak about it later. All right, so Stephanie is saying female and male I struggle with. Okay, there is a really useful video on this channel, which is about masculine or feminine. There's a dog on the thumbnail. I don't remember the exact title, but it's really useful to learn the gender based on the ending. So you don't always have the gender. The ending of a word doesn't always give away the gender. That would be too good to be true, but it's frequent and it's worth actually learning it, because sometimes, very often, beginner people just start learning words and their meaning. It's actually very cool, and that there are no exceptions. Most of the time we do have exceptions to things, but la nation is feminine. L'exception, exception, right? L'exception is also feminine, and all of them are, as far as I know. Connie would say that would be interesting to learn why words are masculine or feminine. It's often there is no really reason, that there is no obvious reason, but sometimes, the ending is given away by the the gender is given away by the ending, so that happens. And sometimes there are little rules, like things like if we borrow a word from English, it is typically masculine, which is the reason why le COVID should be masculine. But it does happen sometimes that they would be feminine based on other reasons, but it's an exception, not the rule. The French Academy apparently decided that it should be la COVID, and eventually they changed their mind because everybody was already saying le COVID. It's fascinating. I don't know why people waste so much time on this debate, but it's fun to see them struggling with it. So anyway, let's move on. So sion is shun in English. You have t, like la liberté, that would be liberty in English. So in English, it ends with ty. And if you have a word that ends in ty in English and it looks a bit fancy, like it has, a couple of syllables, like 2, 3, 4 syllables, that will be a French word that ends in t. So for example, vanity would be vanité. Now we don't use the word in the exact same way, but if you think of as vanity as a personality trait, la vanité, that works in French. Then if you have words in English that ends in ate, verbs that ends in ate, so ate, they will always end in er in French. So for example, elaborate will be élaboré. And I don't know of any exception to this rule. So it's something that I've already shared, I believe, in my hacks about French learning. I shared it once already here, but it's one of the best things that I know, because you have so many words in English, so many verbs that ends in ate, and they will always end in a in French. So elaborate will be élaboré, or sometimes you have some that have to do with body functions. For example, suffocate would be suffocate, would be spelled with QU, right? So we don't, otherwise it would be suffocé if it would be a C at the end. But anyway, suffocate will be suffocate, so that's easy. Urinate will be uriné. Eliminate would be eliminate, and so on and so forth. So those long words that end in ate, which are of Latin origin, that are often a bit more like fancy and technical, all of them, you will be able to make an ER word. And I don't know of any exceptions. So it's really convenient. Then you have some of my favorite patterns here. If something ends in ED in English, that will end in A in French. It's not a 100% thing, but it's frequent enough that you can easily guess them. So for example, décider will be decided in English. And then if you have ing in English, it would be ant in French. So deciding would be décidant. Or like, for example, you know that fatigué is tired, right? Fatigant is tiring. So you don't have the same root here, but you have the ed and the ing that becomes a and on thing. So it's really, really reliable, and it's a good way of having more vocabulary words practically for free when you know the pattern. So it's really convenient. It's very useful if you're a beginner or if you're a intermediate student, or even at any level, actually, when you want to have more vocabulary. If you know how to action these things, you can easily access them very, very fast. This is one of the things that I teach my students in coaching, and that's one of the reasons why I can teach them to learn French a lot faster than they would if they were to learn all the words one by one, because I know all the hacks and the shortcuts, and I tell them, okay, like you can do this and you can do that. And if you just learn this one little thing, then you will unlock another 50, 100, 200 words. So that can be quite convenient. So these are the things that you can use. And then I've added the, it's Eve in English, so IVE, decisive. That becomes décisif, masculine, and décisive in French. So those are the kind of patterns that you can rely on. They're not all here. There will be others, but I didn't have enough room to put them all on the page. That would have been 15 pages. I might actually, if you're a French Accelerator student, you can vote for the topic, for the next topic, and I could do something like that, like why the gender is like that, or like the patterns of vocabulary. And then I promise, when I do it for the French Accelerator, I will do it completely exhaustive, and I will put everything I possibly can on the handout and on the slides. But just here, it's just a little Sunday chat to just give you some pointers and help you out. So I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, please type it in, and then we can move on to the next part. So here, I already told you before, the great trick is that if you have a fancy English word, that will most likely be a French word. So that is a great trick to remember. And here are some examples. So for example, vide. I had not noticed this one until last week. It's actually a student who made me notice it. So vide means empty in French. I never noticed that in English you also have the word void, which practically means empty, right? So or le vide would be the void. So void is a fancier word than empty, and it perfectly fits this this pattern here. And you also have descendre, that means to go down, but in English a fancy word for descendre is to descend. Now it doesn't work always. So for example, you also have ascend in English. You don't have ascendre, you would have to say monter, but you do have ascension, which is in French ascension, and it would fit this pattern here. So you have, it doesn't work all the time. It's not completely foolproof, but you can guess a lot of words once you know these kind of things. So I hope this helps. Oh, Tony is here. Hi, Tony. Hello, 8 only for that. Yes, you cannot transfer that to other kinds of words. So nitrate is going to be nitrat. It's going to be the exact same word, and you will have the at. It's not going to become nitré. It's going to stay like that. But if it's a chemical element, for example, and it ends in ate in English, it's going to end in at in French, the exact same way. So those are going to be real friends. You can do it pretty reliably. I cannot swear that you'll never get in trouble, that like all of them 100% are, because I have never checked one by one all the names of the chemical elements. But I don't think there are any ones that would trick you out. So nitrat, 100%, that works. It's just not this pattern. It's not this pattern, but those are also real friends. But yeah, if you have any other questions like that, feel free to just ask them, and then we'll move on to the sneaky friends. So the sneaky friends are the words that have, like I was telling you at the beginning, they have had a glitch in their meaning. So they have been borrowed in the same way, sometimes from French to English, sometimes from English to French. For example, un coach, that is evidently an English word that have been borrowed into French. But they have a slight different meaning, or sometimes they have more than one meaning in English, but they have only one meaning in French, or vice versa. So for example, un coach, a coach in English could be two things, right? A coach is a vehicle, or a coach could be a person. Like, for example, myself, I'm a French learning coach. And if I speak about my profession in French, I will still say, je suis coach d'apprentissage du français. So I will use the same word in French than in English. Why? because the concept of coaching and of being a coach is a concept from the American culture. That started with fitness coaches and business coaches, and now we have coach for all sorts of transformations. Basically, each time there is a transformation that you can seek out in your life, you can hire a coach for that. And that became very mainstream in the American culture, not so much in the French culture. If I tell people that I'm a French learning coach or un coach d'apprentissage du français, they're like, okay, how is that different from a French teacher? And I have to explain them that it's different from a French teacher because my goal is really to help the student go from where they are to the goals that they have for French. So for example, if they want to get a new job where they have to speak French, or if they want to become efficient in their professional life in French. So that's the thing that I help with that transformation. I do not actually teach the language, although right now I'm teaching things about the French language. But when I work one-on-one or when I work in my programs, there is a goal of reaching the goal that you have. So yes, I do teach the language, but I always focus on the directions. That is the difference. And I focus on doing it a lot faster, because people who teach the language, they might teach the language a little bit randomly. And if you go to any French class while you have a specific goal, you may or may not reach your results. So that is the difference. All of that to say that it's weird for French speakers to be a coach, because we have not had this concept very long in our culture. You have had it much longer in English culture. And then we have transferred this word, but we don't say un coach for a vehicle. What we say for this kind of vehicle is un car, which I put below here. So un car in French is not a car, which would be une voiture. I'm sure you know this word, une voiture. Mais un car is actually a coach or a kind of bus that goes from one city to another, right? So it's not a city bus, which is public transportation. We wouldn't say un car for public transportation. We would say un car for a bus that drives in the countryside, basically, that drives across cities. So I hope this makes sense. Those are two words that I thought were interesting to put together. Then we have passer un examen. Now this one is sneaky, because passer un examen in French means to take an exam, not to pass an exam. So pass an exam in French would be réussir un examen, if you want to write it down. Réussir un examen. That would be to pass an exam. But passer un examen means to take an exam. And passer in French means to go through or go by. So that's what it means. It doesn't mean that we succeed. So that is one of those words that has glitched in the meaning as it was borrowed from French into English. Passer un examen. We have la chance. I like this one. La chance is luck in French. It's not chance. Chance in French would be, chance in English would be le hasard in French. So le hasard, I'm just going to write that here. Actually, le hasard. Yes, there you go. Linda is saying I got in trouble with that one once. Oh, with chance? Yeah, it's well, what is funny is when you say you have like one chance out of two of doing something, you can actually say une chance sur deux, which would be like one luck out of two. So yeah, keep in mind that chance is a bit of a wacky one. Sometimes it will mean the same thing, but most of the time it will actually mean luck. Then you have une librairie. This one is funny because a library in English is what we call in French une bibliothèque. And in librairie in French is a bookshop in English. So, still a place where you find books. It's just not the same kind of place. So in librairie, you can actually buy the books, while in a library, which is in French, une bibliothèque, you can only borrow them. One that I like, une caution. You could think that it means caution, and then it would be just like this pattern that we have here at the top. But actually, it means deposit. Now, when you think about it, it makes some kind of sense. Une caution is like a deposit is something that allows you to be cautious. It's something that helps you caution against some problem later. So it's not completely unrelated, but it's far enough that you would actually need to know that there is a difference in order to use it properly. So une caution, a deposit. La monnaie, one of my favorite ones, because I realized that quite actually recently. That was when I started speaking about cryptocurrencies. I remember I shared a podcast on Telegram. On Telegram, I also like to share the kind of things that I watch in French and the things that you can use for your daily French bath. If you're new here, you might never have heard of the daily French bath. It's an important pillar of the method that we use here. So if you have any questions, please ask them. But you can also find some videos about that on the channel as well. So I like to share the kind of things that I watch and also the things that I find which are great resources for your own French immersion. And one of the things I shared was a French podcast that's about cryptocurrencies. And I realized on that time that cryptocurrency is in French les crypto-monnaies, and that monnaie means currency. It doesn't mean money. The word for money is argent. So that would be l'argent or un argent, it's masculine. And it's funny because argent also means silver. I am amazed to no end about the fact that in French we don't have a different word for silver and money. Like we just mostly don't speak about money for starters. It's a very taboo topic. We do have a lot of slang words for it, but we don't have an official respectable word for money. We use the word for silver, and money means currency. So please don't get confused, especially if you get an interest in cryptocurrencies. Les crypto-monnaies, it's not crypto money, it's a cryptocurrency. So one of my favorite just because of that. And then engagé, also one that I really like just because it gets so many students in trouble. It cannot get you in as much trouble as the next one, which is why I didn't put it in this category. But engagé, you could think it fits this pattern, which we know if decided means décidé, then engagé means engaged or not. Now, engagé means committed in French. The word for engaged is fiancé, which you also have in English. And I find it interesting that you borrowed the word fiancé for a person who is engaged, but you wouldn't use fiancé as an adjective. You would say engaged. In French, we use it for both. We have le fiancé if that's a man, la fiancée if it's a woman. If it's a woman, we will write it with an additional E. But if you are engaged, then you can say je suis fiancé. It's the same word. So that's easy to remember in English once you know it, but many people don't know it when they first try to use it. And it's always interesting to have a student tell me that either they are engagé or sometimes their child is engagé. No, they're not. They are fiancé. Fiancé is the word. Linda is saying we have an old-fashioned word, affianced. Now that is interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing it. So let's get quickly into the troublesome words because there are lots of things to share about those. And if you know other false friends, feel free to share them at the same time. We will discuss them as well. I'm sure you have gotten in trouble if a whole bunch of false friends. I could not at all put them together. I have found lists on the internet of like 100 false friends. It can get very, very varied. But those few will, once you know them, will avoid you a lot of troubles. So first off, une affaire. Une affaire is not an affair. I find it really interesting, and that says something about the way that the English perceive, or like the English speakers perceive the French, because in French, une affaire is any kind of business, or sometimes it could even be a physical thing. So I could say that the things that are on my desk are mes affaires, like my stuff. It could mean my stuff. And une affaire is just something to tend to, a thing you have to do, or a business, basically, or a job, maybe even. Like I have this one job to do, like j'ai une affaire. We don't use it so much in this way. It's more generally les affaires, so all the things you have to do. Fun fact, it could actually, if you would spell it this way, affaire in 2 words, that would literally mean to do, right? So that's what it means. Les affaires are the things that you have to do. But for some reason, when it got transferred into English, I don't know if like the French noblemen who lived in England, all that they had to do was have an affair. Maybe. I don't really have an explanation for that. But yeah, you apparently think that the only thing that French people have to do is cheat on their spouse or some sort of sexual activity, even if they're not married. And I find it quite fun. Like, I mean, I don't know if you had ever thought about that, or if you even knew that affaire is not the same in French as in English. But seriously, like, is that how you perceive us? I don't know if I should feel flattered or insulted. I mean, I don't know. I'll let you judge. So, and basically all of them have, like, the reason why I put them in this batch, and I said, like, be careful, they're really not your friends, they will get you in trouble, is because all of them have some sort of sexual innuendo or meaning around them. So that's why I wanted to include them so that you know, and you won't actually make those mistakes, because it can be embarrassing to make those mistakes. And if you're in a safe space, which is what I advocate for learning, you might not know that, but I have this 4-step system, 4-step method on this channel that I also use with my clients, which is selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. The safe is important. I could have just said selection, activation, immersion, and practice, but safe practice is really important because you need to have a space where it's okay to make mistakes. And if you make those mistakes with me in a one-on-one session, it's cool. Nothing bad will happen. I've heard those mistakes 20 times before. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not going to make you feel bad about it. But if you make those mistakes out in the outside world, in a business meeting, in a in a job interview, or a situation where it's not a good idea to make this kind of mistakes, who knows what could happen. So that was the reason why I included them here. So at least you've heard them and you're not gonna make them in the future. So exhibition looks very much like one that would fit this pattern. After all, like nation, it's got to be an exhibition, right? Wrong. An exhibition in English is what we call in French une exposition. Une exhibition in French is only the word that we would use when something is being exposed or exhibited that should not be. So it's going to have some sort of morally reprehensible aspect to it. So either it's going to be somewhat sexual, like someone being naked like they shouldn't, when they shouldn't, which in France we don't really have a culture of people being naked out in the open. They do that a lot in Germany. I find that fascinating. But in France, we don't do that. So it will be seen poorly if someone does that, and we will use the word exhibition for that. Or if you display too many emotions when you shouldn't, you could use the word exhibition for that. So that's a word that you don't want to use too much. Like if you say, oh, hier j'ai vu une exhibition, it's literally not the same as if you went to a museum and you saw an exposition. It's completely different experience. So please write that down. Remember that. And if you are to speak to someone about this wonderful museum exhibition that you saw or exhibit, say exposition. Like don't make that mistake, because it's, yeah, again, it depends on the context. I mean, if you're in a safe space where it's fine to make mistakes, it's really cool. But if you're not, it could backfire on you. So question, do say business affairs, foreign affairs, economic affairs, etc. in formal English? Yes, so again, like formal English is closer to French. So politics, etc. Saying agreed. And we say affair when we mean a big formal party like a wedding. Yeah, that is really interesting. We wouldn't use affair for that in French. And we never would say affaire for a big party. We would say une fête, une soirée, maybe. So that was affaire and exhibition. Now, excité is also one of those that it would look like it fits here. So it should mean excited, but it doesn't. It actually means aroused or horny. That also, again, says something about the French, which we don't actually really have a word for excited. And I'm very embarrassed every time that I have a student who's asking me, okay, how do you say excited in French? Because often my students know that excité doesn't mean excited, but they don't know that we actually don't have a word for excited in French. I think this really comes down to the culture, and the French just don't really say that they're excited about something. The most strongest word we could use is avoir hâte. So if I say j'ai hâte de faire quelque chose, j'ai hâte de blah, 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 that would mean I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, that's as far as we would get. We wouldn't say, oh, I'm so really excited about, this future. Like, I'm excited about talking to you next Sunday. Well, maybe I am in English, but in French, best case scenario, I just look forward to speaking to you it's next Sunday, sorry. So yeah, again, probably the French are a lot more sexual than, or French speakers are a lot more sexual than English speakers, because yeah, apparently there's only one thing that excites us. Sorry, I'm kind of something to remember. At least, if you remember that, you will remember that don't use this word. Just don't. It's okay, however, to use it for children, because of course, if we're speaking about children, we know that we are not referring to something sexual about them, because we know we wouldn't say that. We wouldn't do that. So it's okay to say that the children are excités. You can say les enfants sont excités, like if they're running around really just excited, but it's even not a good thing. Like, it's not like they're excited as in they're looking forward to something. It's more like they are tired and they're annoying. So yep, be careful with that. Now, following up on the very last column, I'm trying to wrap it so I have time for your questions if you still have any. Introduire. Introduire means introduce, but as in put something into something. So I could say that I wouldn't actually say that, but or like if I want to clean this bottle, I have a little thingy. I don't even know what it's called in English, but I can introduce it in the bottle, and that's what introduire means in French. But you cannot introduce someone to someone else. That would be présenter. Now, interestingly, you also have the word present in English, which means pretty much the same as introduce. And that is this same idea that it's like fancier French will have the same, fancier French will be, no, sorry, fancier English will be a French word. So introduire is not, is introduce, but introduce something into something else, not présenter. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. I think I'm rumbling a bit weirdly, but please tell me if you got it. What about using ravi for thrilled instead of excited? You can say that you will sound extremely polite and very like you will really pass as a delightful lady if you say, "Oh, je suis ravi." That's that. We also have enchanté, which would mean the same thing, and yeah, it sounds like you're really being over the top polite if you say that. But you know, it could be part of your personality. Like if you're a rather kind and nice person, that will work. But if you're like, say, a sassy New Yorker, that will not fit the rest of your personality. So that depends on the kind of attitude that you have. But yeah, it could work. So un préservatif, I wanted to put that in there because it's not a preservative. No, it's actually a condom. The word for preservative is conservateur. So typically it's in plural, so I'm going to put it in plural here. Les conservateurs. Les conservateurs. I have a really hard time with saying the French words with the r and speaking the rest of my speech here in English without the r. But les conservateurs, that is preservatives. So it is used in industry, like in food, for example. It could also mean conservative in politics, for example. You can say like un homme politique conservateur. We don't use it much anymore, but it could also mean that. So when you think about it, people who are conservative, they just want to keep stuff in place. And that's also what preservatives do. So that's the same kind of idea. But be careful because préservatif in French is something that will preserve you from something else. So keep that in mind. And finally, for the last, really not your friend, those that will get you in trouble, is une envie. And particularly the sentence, j'ai envie de toi. Now, I found that out when I was doing some research for this little talk. I never actually noticed that people could think that j'ai envie de toi means I envy you. No one has actually made this mistake with me in a class. I guess I don't make people envy me, probably, so that's how it doesn't happen. But une envie is something you feel like having, like a fancy. And j'ai envie de toi would mean I want you, I fancy you in a sexual way. So you don't actually want to say that if you envy someone. You could say je suis jaloux de toi, jaloux or jalouse. Or you could say je suis envieux or envieuse. Of course, you have to adjust for masculine and feminine. But that's not the same as envie. Envie is really, yeah, when you feel like doing something. So you could say j'ai envie d'une glace. I feel like an ice cream. I would like to have an ice cream. So I hope this helps. I hope you won't be making these mistakes because, yeah, they could get you in trouble. So that is why I wanted to include them here. And we do have another 11 minutes left. So if you have any question that's about anything or about the topics of today, please let me know. If you have other ideas for things you would like me to speak on those YouTube live on Sundays, I would also like to hear about it. I will leave you a little bit of time so you can type it in. And meanwhile, I will look up the next topic because I'm sure someone will ask me, and I haven't remembered what this topic will be next week. Oh, the topic we have planned for next week is how meditation will help you learn French. That's going to be a fascinating topic. It helps a lot in many different ways, and that is the reason why I have made some meditation tracks on this channel. By the way, I need to apologize. I was trying to release a meditation track yesterday, which was a new quantum jumping for thinking in French. I was super excited about this track, but those of you who have tried it have been able to tell me that it just didn't work at all. Not because the track was, the concept was wrong, but because the track was just really poorly edited. We have had a lot of issues this week with our editor, and I will have to do the editing myself, to be honest. So I'm just waiting to find some time to be able to do it myself, and then I will republish it. Not only this one, but a bunch of other tracks that are also in the making and just haven't been edited correctly, and so I have to get down to the nitty-gritty myself and do it. I don't know if get down to the nitty-gritty can be used in this context, but I'm gonna have to just, roll up my sleeves. They're already rolled up, they're short, but do it myself. So if you have any questions, please type them in. We do have another 10 minutes, especially if you're a beginner. I don't know if Stephanie is still here, but if you have any questions, now is the time. Nitty-gritty works. Nitty-gritty works. Okay, thanks, Connie. That's amazing. Linda is saying, I got in a little trouble once with l'addition. I thought it was complimenting someone on the addition to his house. No, we wouldn't use it in this way. So it's kind of it could be counted as the sneaky one, because most of the time we only use it to mean the bill at a restaurant. So if you are at a cafe or at a restaurant in Paris and you raise your hand and you say l'addition s'il vous plaît, that means the bill, please. And that's the biggest context in which we will use it. When you think about it, a bill at a restaurant is just really like the sum total of something. So it's added up, right? So that's why it means that. If you go to school because you're a child and you're like 8 or 7, I don't know what age you learn that, but les additions is something you learn in math. You learn to add numbers up. So that is something, but we wouldn't use it as une addition pour la maison. We wouldn't use it in this context. So Stephanie saying, I'm here, no question just yet, but it's very interesting how they seem alike but mean very different things. Yeah, it's questionable whether it's very different. Like you can feel that it's very different or that it's just a little bit different. I like to see the connection about how the words came to mean what they mean, or how it's just a glitch in meaning as opposed to being something like completely random. Because I find that it helps. It's also the way that I teach. So not everybody likes it this way. I do teach in a very rambly manner where I like to explain a lot of things. I like to sometimes even digress even sometimes in one-on-one sessions. I feel that the student has to know how it came to be this way. I try to keep it quite short. I don't ramble for an hour like I do here, because the goal in the one-on-one session is to have the student speak as much as possible. But I find that when the students know the pattern or the reasons behind things, it's a lot easier for them to remember the thing, as opposed to just throwing information at them and expecting that they remember it, because it just doesn't work this way. If it worked this way, you could just read the dictionary and know French. That's just not how it works. So Tony is saying, apparently l'addition comes from the time when someone in the restaurant actually stood there to add up the bill, each of the items a long time ago. That would make sense, actually, when you think about it. Like if someone would stand there and add them up one by one. So, yep. And they're saying, he looks at me like I was nuts, basically. Nice bill. Yeah. That's what it would mean, I guess. All right, you have any questions? Do you know any other false friends? Because I haven't put them all on the page. In fact, I had a lot more on my notes, so maybe I can read through that, through those and see. What do I have? Oh yeah, one trick that I wrote on my notes, but that wasn't on your page, is that if you take guesses, because 50% of the vocabulary is shared, and most of the time the meaning is either the exact same or similar enough that you can reuse it. So if you do a lot of daily French bath, and if you are new to here and you've never heard of the daily French bath, please watch the videos where I speak about it. It's a really important part. So we have the 4 steps, which is selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. Immersion is basically what we call on this channel the daily French bath, because you have to do it daily. Honestly, the only way to learn a language is to be surrounded by it. And everything else that I speak about here is just a way to speed up the process. But if you don't have the language around you, it will not gel. It will not come together. But if you do have immersion, which is the 3rd step, that will allow you to basically make all the other things work. The only danger with immersion, because basically what we do here is a lot of activation. Selection is something you might want to do up front. We work together, I do I call it the roadmap to fluency, which is basically the selection of everything that the student has to learn. And then we practice it together in order to activate it. But if you don't do your immersion, you're not going to be able to make it gel or make it come together because your brain learns languages because they're around you. That's how you learned your native language as a child. So that's also how you will learn a foreign language. If you do only the first two steps, or if you just go to school and try to like do the exercises, but you never do immersions because you think, oh, I'm not going to understand it, it's just not going to work. So the whole idea behind the daily French bath and the immersion, I have entire lectures on that here. So please watch those if you're new. But yeah, the entire point is basically to make the things gel in your brain. So if you do your daily French bath and you take guesses, knowing that we have 50% of vocabulary in common and that most of them will actually be your friends, you will be right more often than not. So it's actually very rare to stumble upon one of these. And it's just that when it happens, you get a shock. So because you're either embarrassed or you have like a moment of like, what's happening? And so these kind of experiences, because they're so shocking, will get really, really imprinted in your brain because you don't want it to happen again. So it's easy to think that, oh my God, there are so many false friends and they're horrible, while really the false friend is the exception, not the rule. So please don't be too afraid of false friends. If you find one that is horrible, write it down. I already shared a lot of those with you today, but if you find some others and you're like, oh my God, like I must never mix this one up because it's going to be terrible, write it down, make sure you learn it. You will, those that are very salient, you will not actually make the mistakes if you have learned it once because your brain will register it. But other than that, please feel rather safe around friends or cognates because you will be right more often than not if you use the daily French bath and you take guesses based on, oh yeah, like it looks like an English word. It probably means the same thing. Stephanie is saying the daily French bath is a daily video or just one. So the daily French bath is just being surrounded by some French language. So you can take anything on YouTube that's in French, any podcast, any French series, podcast that's in French, any French series that's on Netflix, any movie that's in French, even with English subtitles. If you're very beginner and you still want to understand what you're watching, even with English subtitles, it will still work. I have made there's at least one lecture from a Sunday that's on immersion, which is on this channel, so you can watch that. But really, it's for you to choose. When I make the roadmap to fluency, I actually select a whole bunch of resources based on the students' tastes, because the whole idea is that you need to start using the French language to watch the kind of content that you would actually already watch if it was in English. So I don't know the kind of things that you like, but for example, I know that Linda here enjoys knitting, so she can watch knitting videos on YouTube, for example. Or if you like crime documentaries or crime series, you can watch crime series on Netflix, which are in French. So it could be really anything, and the goal with it is just to have it around you. You don't need to understand everything, and you actually don't need to understand anything. Like, you need to trust that your brain will somehow sort it out, and you will see that it happens basically almost by magic. So you need all the 4 steps, and especially you need safe practice to become able to speak in French. But it's fascinating when you start having French around how much you actually start to understand when you don't even try. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, those lectures will also help you quite a lot. And I do share, there's one where I share a lot of resources on that lecture, so I would recommend watching it. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. Linda is saying, blessed and blessé. Yes, that was one of mine. This one is quite interesting because blessé means injured, and it's practically the opposite of blessed. So this is a total false friend. A few that I have here, which I can read if you don't have another question or while you are typing the other questions. I have un caractère, which is not a character, it's a personality. A cave in English is not une cave in French. Une cave in French is a cellar. One that I have is râpé. Râpé means to grate. It looks just like rape, but it means grate. Poisson is fish. We also have poison, which is poison. I write down that you can watch a little videos by a channel which is called Casually Explained. I find it really, that one's fascinating. It's Casually Explained French. You can just look it up on YouTube. It's like 4 minutes. It's the kind of video that is made for the sake of comedy, but it is a bit scary when you watch it. So it's ironic, okay? Like, the French language is not really like he describes it. It's making it way worse than it is. But I did find it interesting, especially as a French teacher, to watch it. And everything he actually says in that video is true. It's just that he cherry-picked the things that are the worst. I suppose there is one about sounds, shoe. Oh yeah, if you don't look at the spelling, the sounds can make you confused because les choux is cabbage in French. It's not choux. So yeah, good one. Thanks, Tony. Couple ones that I have. Attend in English is not attendre in French. Attendre in French is to wait. Attend is in French assister. So that's one. Money. Deceive and deception is tromper, and tromperie in French. Décevoir is to disappoint. So those are different. Journey, one of my favorites. So journée is day. Journey is actually voyage or trajet in French. Location. Location is one of my favorites because for some reason my students like to bring it up a lot. Location is actually an English word, but location in French is rental. So that's a false friend. And actuellement doesn't mean actually, it means currently. But that's more the French speakers who make this mistake in English, not so much the other one. And courant means fluent actually. Courant means fluent, doesn't mean current. So, well, I mean, there's affaires courantes, which would mean current affairs, but most of the time courant would mean more like fluent or flowing. So that's it for today. If you have a really quick question, please type it in quickly because we are through with the 1 hour mark. So thank you so much for being here. Please give this video a like if you have been here all along and you have enjoyed it, because that really helps with the channel. And again, if you would like to study with it more closely, a bit less casually, a bit more like to the point, you can study one-on-one with me. I have 3 spots right now. You can actually click the link in the description to check that out. Or you can join the French Fluency Accelerator, which is my group program. And we also have a private Facebook community, which is very tiny, very tight-knit, very adorable. Everybody is super supportive in that community. And yep, that will be it for today. So thank you so much for being here with me. And I will see you next Sunday. We will speak about how meditation can help you learn French, even and especially if you don't meditate on a daily basis. You can, if you have some time this week to prepare for this one, I have a lecture already, which is about altered states, which is close enough to the concept of meditation, but that was about how you can use the different states of your brain and things like, for example, when you're driving, you're typically in a relaxed state, which is very conducive to your daily French bath. So that was the topic of that one. But next week, we will speak really about how you can use meditation and how you can get started with it. And hopefully, I will find some time this week to get my new track ready. I hope so. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone. I see everyone is saying thank you. Have a great day. It was amazing to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Au revoir.